Welcome inside episode 696 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, and maybe just for today, I should call it the heart of enemy territory, as the Ottawa Senators are in Winnipeg getting ready to take on the Jets.
And as a hashtag goalie-friendly show, we got to talk about a former Sens goalie that has retired and reflect on that Cinderella story.
What an absolute legendary career for Andrew Hammond. But speaking of goalies, there was big news at morning skate today. We'll let you know all that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Tuesday, December 20th. The show is free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to subscribe to the Locked On Senators channel and be a friend and tell a friend that the Locked On Senators podcast is your easiest way to stay up to date on all things Ottawa Senators, Monday through Friday, plus post-game analysis like we'll have tonight. Pilsy, if tonight's postcast is anything like last March 24th when I had boots on the ground in Winnipeg, people are in for a treat.
Yes, I mean, people are always in for a treat when it comes to the postcast, as we always show up. Ross, you did a postcast by yourself without even being able to watch the game, as you were calling a Belleville Senators game, and we always bring the vibes and have all the Sens fans together. But yes, this one has a little bit of extra spiciness to it, as the Ottawa Senators are in your town, beautiful Winnipeg, Manitoba. And last time was a very fun game if you were a Sens fan.
It was an amazing game, right? It was March 24th, a game that was rescheduled. Unfortunately, we were supposed to both have boots on the ground for this game together, right? After the second period, it was 1-1, right? Not for long. Tyler Ennis, Colin White, Connor Brown, and then Brady Tkachuk into an empty net, and Ottawa with 4 goals in the third period, winning 5-2 in that game. But the Winnipeg Jets were in disarray at that point. They had an interim head coach, not much to play for. This is a different Winnipeg Jets team. They are 20-10-2, or 20-10-1 on the season, and they are elite. However, they also have a ton of injuries. So does Ottawa. We'll compare those and contrast them later on in the show. It's a game day. It's all vibes. I'm going to be heading by the beautiful, prestigious Fairmont Hotel in Winnipeg. I'm going to go grab Brucey, have some lunch with him. So we'll have a good chat there. But always a great vibe. I actually saw Justin Peters and a few of the Sens media folk, like the communications team, walking. I was in my building where I work is right across the street. I was going down to get my DoorDash last night, and they were all walking by outside. So, hey, they were braving the elements. It was like dash 25, and there's the underground pathway, but they were braving it. So Sens are in for a fight. Warriors, exactly. You know, troopers out there for the Sens lone visit to the Peg. We'll get to that later, but Pilsy, I want to talk about Andrew Hammond real quick right off the bat, because what we saw will never be duplicated.
No.
A goalie with an .898 save percentage in the American Hockey League comes up and wins 20 out of 23 starts, gets a point in 22 of those 23 starts. Like, what memories immediately come to mind when you think of the Hamburglar?
I think you kind of nailed it right there. Is when Andrew Hammond was originally called up, I don't think anyone was excited or like, nice, we're finally going to get to see what Andrew Hammond has in the NHL, because he wasn't a good goalie in the AHL. He wasn't an okay goalie in the AHL. I think it's fair to say he was a bad goalie in the AHL. I mean, you mentioned it, but he had a 7-13-2 record with a 3.51 goals against in bingo. That's how long ago this was. So it was kind of like the feeling was, okay, Leonard, Anderson, they're not around. This is going to be tough sledding for the Sens here. They're 10 points back from the Boston Bruins. that the season's kind of over. Let's just see how this rides out. And I think Andrew Hammond approached this so well. When reporters talked to him, he said, you know what? This is a fresh start. It's a clean slate. I'm going to take it and run. And sometimes when you just allow yourself to release all expectations, you take pressure off yourself and you're like kind of shoulder shrug, like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to see how I can do. Sometimes that can lead to extraordinary things. And when it leads to a 21-2 record, it was incredible. Like, there was times where you just knew the Sens were going to win the game with Andrew Hammond during that stretch. I had a lot of friends that weren't hockey fans. They weren't Sens fans, and they were tuned into every Sens game being like, can this guy keep it going? And it became a national story. They're talking about it on CBC News and all this kind of stuff. So it certainly was a time to remember, as the Hamburglar run was an epic run by a goalie.
And we're pulling up the game log if you're watching on YouTube right now. Like, the amount of 35 plus save performances was absolutely outrageous. But how about the amuse-bouche for this run? The little taster before you get your app. He let in 2 goals on 5 shots when he came in relief when Leonard got hurt in the initial game. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like, that's kind of what we expected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's crazy. And then he just that is a lot of W's on that chart, Ross.
Exactly. And you look at starting it out against Montreal, 42 save performance. You're like, hey, cute story. Then he does it again against Florida at home. You're like, okay, the Sens played well that game, only gave up 22 shots. And now we're going on the tour of death in California back when they were all elite teams. Shutout against Anaheim, shutout against LA. Goalies don't often even play back-to-back games anymore.
Yeah.
On 2 days in a row. He had back-to-back shutouts and then went up to San Jose and they won 5-2. I think that was the game where Zach Smith had a penalty shot and like did a full stop and then shot, and the other team was complaining that he stopped his momentum going forward. Anyways, great road trip.
Who would remember that? That's crazy.
Gets the shootout loss in Minnesota and then wins in Winnipeg as well. Huge save on Andrew Ladd in that game. But the end, like, the game, and I need to scroll down one more spot here, but the game that I was able to go to, I was living in Halifax at the time. I came back for Easter. That win against Pittsburgh might be the most entertaining hockey game of all time. Sidney Crosby scored 10 seconds into the game, and I'm up there thinking, did I jinx the Hamburglar? Did I? They're down 3-0, 15 minutes into the game. No, I didn't jinx the Hamburglar, Pilsy, because Ottawa came storming back. Mark Stone ties the game late, or scores. Pajot scored shorthanded in the second period to make it 3-1. And then my boy Jared Havelock turns to me and goes, if they score before the end of the second period, I like their chances. And sure enough, they got a goal in like the last minute. Then they tie it up in the end of the third period. And then that's the famous Mark Stone again, where he goes skate to stick and scores in overtime. And they needed every single one of these points because they made the playoffs on the last day. This run may have skewed, though, Pilsy, how I think a team can finish the year. Like, I never think they're out of it now.
I mean, if you're not statistically out of it, you can't shut it down, because we've seen the Hamburglar run in full effect. And I think, Ross, I've totally forgot about the back-to-back games, let alone back-to-back shutouts. Like, that is absolutely insane to do. I think that might be the most impressive part of this, honestly.
That's when you started thinking, hey, we might
be
watching something that doesn't come around. And they weren't like both easy games. He made 35 saves against LA on the second half of that back-to-back. He faced 60 shots total in those 2 games. It was truly remarkable. And in the last 2 games, when they needed 2 wins, and that's when the pressure was at its height because they were right there, but still needed to win, he allowed 1 goal on 61 shots. In the final 2 games at Madison Square Garden, at Philly. Unbelievable. We will never, ever, ever, ever see that again in our lifetime. And the cherry on top, or should I say the condiments on top, was the Hamburglar phenomenon that he already had it on his helmet. The French fries started coming in. McDonald's comes in with the sponsorship. And I jokingly put on Twitter yesterday that McDonald's pitched that to Disney and they said it's too unbelievable. We can't do that. People won't buy it as a story, and that's Hollywood. But no, all jokes aside, that was amazing. Legitimately, I've been to a Stanley Cup final game, Game 3, the only time Ottawa has won a Stanley Cup final game.
Yeah.
the most fun I've had being a Sens fan is that Hamburglar run.
Nice. Yeah,
That
it was epic.
And that's not even to say like how Mark Stone finished that year. Should have won Rookie of the Year. Erik Karlsson, unbelievable time for him that season. Just amazing memories, but hopefully Ottawa can turn the page and find the next best thing that's a little more sustainable. Because I feel like that kind of went with Ottawa's total of that decade, where it's like one amazing run, no. Another like great playoff series win against Montreal the next year, no playoffs. Then they make the conference final next year, no. Everything falls apart. So hopefully we get a little more sustained success if and when the Senators can find success next up.
Yeah, a little more balance would be great for our health, Ross.
Yes, but hey, nobody loves the mushy middle, and Ottawa's done a great job at
True.
never in that. They are either the number one story, like this is wild, or this is wild. There's no with the Ottawa Senators.
Agreed. But hey, big shout out to Andrew Hammond and his family. He actually went over to Russia and played a couple games in the KHL this year. He did everything he could to keep the dream alive, and I think he can put his pads up with a proud mind, knowing that he had a pretty good NHL career for a guy that was undrafted and not expected to play in the NHL at all, let alone have a couple decent years and a couple decent contracts in there. So definitely shout out Andrew Hammond.
Where do you think he finished in Vezina voting that year? 24 games played.
Top 10?
Yeah, 7th.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about
Want
right.
to hear something even crazier?
Let's hear it.
He finished with more Hart Trophy votes than PK Subban, Drew Doughty, and Marc-Andre Fleury that year.
Wow. I mean, fair like that.
He had 5 fifth-place votes and 1 fourth-place vote for the Hart Trophy, and he played 23 games.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. What a story. A 941 save percentage, Pilsy. Like that is absolutely absurd. Every 100 shots, he lets in 6 goals through this magical run. All right, let's turn our attention to today's game. We've got a busy 2 lineups to get to because Winnipeg, they were rolling throughout the season, but a big reason why we won't see tonight. Yeah. All that coming up. You're next. You're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at betonline.net. Ross, you got a couple levy locks for this game. I'll let you get to that in just a second. But where are you heading with those levy locks? It's betonline.net, the trusted online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And for a good reason, guys. They got all the latest odds, news, scores, player performance, props, updates, whatever you need, you can find it and get all your information ready for your gambling needs. And it's not just hockey, guys. They got football. They got basketball. The World Cup's over. Baseball offseason is here. Get your futures all lined up. They got golf, boxing, UFC, whatever you like, you can find it at BetOnline. So go to the website today at betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Guys, it's betonline.net where the game starts.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Shawarma Palace. Senators game days taste better at Shawarma Palace. You can dine at any of their 9 Ottawa locations, and also exclusively their delivery partner is Uber Eats. So you can head over to Uber Eats and get your Shawarma Palace delivered right to your door if you're feeling a little lazy. But if you're not, you want to get up and go, you can always have a chance to run into us at the Rideau Street location near Augusta. Just ask Jack City from London. He knew where to go on his trip to Ottawa, and we know where we go right when we go home to the nation's capital. It's Shawarma Palace. Any of their 9 locations are all fantastic, though. The one in Orleans looks like a proper restaurant. That's a big location. I'm used to just going and being shoulder to shoulder because everybody is in line waiting for their Shawarma Palace. Now, you can get anything we talked about after the Habs win. Get your poutine at Shawarma Palace. I always go in with the horse blinders. Same order. Same order. I'll get this chicken shawarma platter, double extra garlic sauce, please. And if I'm feeling real crazy, I ask them to throw in a few extra pickled turnips. Love me some pickled turnips. But you always know that you're getting quality, and you always know that it does not come at the expense of quantity. Some people are saying that it's more affordable to go to Shawarma Palace exclusively than going to the grocery store. And they give you your salads on there. They give you their potatoes. It's a well-balanced meal, always perfectly fresh, always at Shawarma Palace. So make sure you head to any of their 9 locations and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Tweet at us, tweet at Shawarma_Palace, or on Instagram. Just make sure they know that Locked On Senators sent you. You're among family at Shawarma Palace, and Senators game days always taste better at Shawarma Palace. You are listening to Locked On Senators. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller and Pilsy. Let's get to some Levy locks.
Ooh.
Or should we wait and do lineups? Your call.
No, let's get to the Levy locks off the ad read here. Get the people ready.
Well, if you're following along at Sens Central on Twitter, we put out a little inside info, aka I went through and did not include the games where they play Winnipeg in Ottawa, because if you don't know, Brady Tkachuk has family ties in the Winnipeg area. His mom's entire side of the family is from here. Met Keith while he was playing for the Winnipeg Jets in the early 90s. Makes sense there, right? Well, Don Oster, Brady's grandpa, has been in attendance each time fans have been allowed in the building. So I said, to hell with the COVID shortened season. He did all right here in the COVID series. I want to know, when Don Oster's in attendance, how does Brady play? Well, it turns out he has 4 points in 3 games, a point in each of them, and then had 2 goals last March, including the empty netter. So I'm all over Brady Tkachuk props tonight at BetOnline. Anytime goal scorer, 2 points, and then I sprinkled a little on 3 points because I don't want to miss out if he goes off in tonight's game. So the official stats for Brady Tkachuk in Winnipeg with fans in the building, I almost feel like TSN, Pilsy, like what I was saying, how they always have like 3 qualifiers on each stat.
Yep.
Well, I mean, this is fair because I want to know when Don's in attendance, what they do. 3 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, get this, 14 shots on goal, 11 hits, and even fought Nathan Beaulieu when he was 19 years old. So I'm all over those props tonight. Brady Tkachuk is going to have himself an absolute night. No spoilers for my Locked On player.
Yeah, you gotta be watching out for Brady Tkachuk when he's in Winnipeg. That's for sure, especially when Grandpa's in attendance.
Absolutely. So what do you have any Pilsy, not parlays per se, but anything you're riding with tonight? You want to give the people a heads up to either follow or fade?
No, I'm right with you. I'm putting heavy prop bets on Brady Tkachuk here. Whenever he comes to Winnipeg, that's what I look for. So yes, follow along with the Levy locks. No Pilsy's parlay of the day today.
And Don just looks like a guy who you'd crush a few beers with, as we're pulling up the photo there.
Yeah, he looks like a good dude.
Yeah, apparently he gave up his Jets season tickets because he wanted to watch Matthew and Brady and Terran's field hockey games more. So he's just like, man, the
That's
times
awesome.
are conflicting. So he stays home and he watches that. So I hope I run into him at the game tonight. I'll definitely say hi to him as well. And you look at another article that the one I got that photo from, actually, NHL.com back in the day. It was actually before. So this photo is from somewhere else. But when Brady was about to get drafted, they were talking about how Chantal, Brady's mom, always gets extra nervous when Matthew played against Winnipeg.
Yep.
So you know that it's an important night for the Tkachuk family, and I know he'll come to play. So looking forward to that. And Brady will not have to deal with Connor Hellebuyck, as we kind of buried the lead from our intro. Connor Hellebuyck is out with a non-COVID related illness. The Jets goalie is back to his Vezina caliber this season. He has been outrageously good.
Yeah, Connor Hellebuyck, I mean, he's always been one of the best goalies in the league, in my opinion, and definitely adding Hellebuyck to the list of injuries for the Winnipeg Jets really is a positive thing for the Senators here, as it's a non-COVID related illness, and it's likely, I don't know, is it confirmed that David Rittich will be starting?
Unconfirmed. We're recording here just after 1 p.m. Eastern. It'll either be David Rittich or Arvid Holm, who would be making his NHL debut. I know Ottawa Senators fans are cringing when they hear that.
So we're hoping for David Rittich. Let's just say that.
Yeah, bring us big save, Dave. David Rittich, I looked it up, though. He does have a winning record against Ottawa. Many of those came in the COVID season when he was with Calgary, but he's got like a .905 save percentage. Nothing to write home about.
No, definitely not. And Ross, you did label this as a must-win game. So this is part of the must-win game series here. So this is a big one. And I think we're in for a treat. Like that game up against the Wild was an absolute snooze fest. So I think the boys are going to pump up a little more energy for this battle.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, last spring was so good. Like Tyler Ennis and our boy Nick Anderson, who's going to be a Sens Central citizen coming up soon. He's always like one section over from me. I think he has work tickets down there. Mine is with Rachel's work tickets for her family. Shout out to Goldbergs. However, with that, I was looking down and he turns up to me right after, and at the top of his lungs, he yells, "Tyler Ennis," and everyone else in the building, everyone's quiet.
Everyone's like, what?
So perfect because that gave Ottawa a 2-1 lead. So everyone's still kind of getting on him a little bit, like, hey, this isn't over. And then boom, when Colin White tapped it in back door, we're like, all right, let's go. This is in the back.
And how about those goal scorers? You mentioned Tyler Ennis, Connor Brown, Colin White. Like, all those guys are gone. I think there was one more that I'm forgetting. No, because Brady got the other two, right? Yeah. So, like, this is a very different Ottawa Senators team, not that late after that.
Yeah, 100%. So we're looking forward to seeing what happens on the ice tonight. And coming up after a quick break, we're going to get into both teams' lineup charts. Where can this game be either won or lost? We'll all have that next on the Locked On Senators podcast.
But today's
episode is, we both love the Glebe Central Pub so much. We both want to tell you about it.
We're fired up to get into it. You start, and I'll hit the people with my menu item, my locked on menu item. I'm gonna try to do that every time we do a Glebe Central Pub ad read.
All right. Well, you can visit the Glebe Central Pub in the heart of the Glebe at 779 Bank Street. It's legitimately walking distance from TD Place. So if you're going to check out a 67s game, a Red Blacks game in the summer, FC Valor, they were showing the World Cup at the Glebe Central Pub. So they are your neighborhood friendly pub. They've got great drink specials, great food. And not only that, but how about a shuttle to and from the CTC for $15? That's it. Pilsy, we took Uber to get out there one time. It's not $15.
I was going to say, in this economy, and you're among friends on the bus, that's awesome.
Absolute vibe. We're hoping to get one set up for the Chris Neil game. Again, unconfirmed that we can get back, but if we can, that's definitely the play, is to go to Glebe Central Pub, have a few cold ones, get on the bus, and guess what? They drop you back off right at the Glebe Central Pub where you're among friends and you can continue the good vibes rolling after an Ottawa Senators home game. So go check them out at the Glebe Central Pub in the heart of the Glebe. They're the official sponsor of the Postcast and the Locked On Senators podcast. We love our friends at the Glebe Central Pub. Make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Pilsy, give me your menu item that people should be munching down on today.
Well, I recently went on a dinner date with my girlfriend, shout out Simone, and I got this item where we were eating Reuben sandwich. I love a good Reuben sandwich. You get the sauerkraut, you get the smoked meat on there, some nice mustard, a good pickle on the side, and then get some fries with that. And you can get that at the Glebe Central Pub.
Glebe Central Pub, you're among friends and family at the Glebe Central Pub. Check them out at 779 Bank Street and tell them that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pilsy. Before we get into tonight's game, Senators at Winnipeg, taking on the second place team in the Central Division. Damn, I wish we had the Ottawa Senators in the Central Division. Certainly the Atlantic is a dogfight every single night. It seems like every team is getting 2 points. It's impossible to make up any ground. We do want to mention, and still a part of the Senators organization, although not signed, our friend Henry at Sens Prospects making note that Alex Formenton is making his Swiss League debut today with Ambrio Piotta. And the latest, Rick Westhead did put out a tweet recently. Robin Doolittle for the Globe and Mail put out an article. It seems like it's 5 players from the World Junior team that were involved in this alleged group sexual assault. And the investigation seems to be closer to conclusion. And if they have reasonable evidence to believe that this happened and charges are pressed, I don't know how the names can't be made public. So I think we will know who was involved in this alleged incident.
Yeah, and Ross, like obviously we've been on this story, and kind of the thing is there's no update, and we want to hear updates for clarity, but it's not nice hearing the updates. And when you hear more about this story, I mean, it is.
You read the article, eh? It's bad.
Yeah, it's like I almost don't want the updates because of how bad and eye opening it is to see what went on in 2018. But yeah, it's the thing is we need some clarity on it. I think that's the main thing.
For the victim too, right? Like once
Exactly.
that, then hopefully you can get to the next stage of grief where the healing aspect. And I don't know if that's going to happen before there's like a real finality to this situation.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a awkward spot to be in because obviously Formanton still the rights are with the Ottawa Senators, and we know what he brings on the ice. But man, yeah, as you get more and more information, it just seems absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean the situation's super like incomprehensible to be the parent, like who like went at 5 a.m. and their daughter's like inconsolable, like shaking, sitting in the shower. And anyways,
Yeah.
definitely the journalism by Robin Doolittle is commendable there. Rick
Yep.
West has been on that story, and we'll keep you posted as we know. But again, no names have been said, so innocent until proven otherwise. So
Yep.
we'll continue to follow Alex Formanton in Swiss League and give you periodic updates on how he's doing. He's starting on the second line. Pillsy, no updates on the Senators lines, as we thought, and we're like, hey, if we hold off this until the Sens morning skate, they had a full day off yesterday. Could maybe Artem Zub or Tim Stützle, could they make the trip to Winnipeg for tonight's game? No. The answer is no. So we're basically rolling with the same lineup we saw against Minnesota on Sunday afternoon. Pillsy, do you want to run through this line chart here as I pull it up on our YouTube page once it continues loading? I guess I can start because the top line, we know what it is. It's going to
Take
be
it away.
Derek Brassard in between Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. I think there's going to be some eyebrows lifted among Jets fans when they see the top line with Tkachuk and Giroux, and then they're like, "Wait, Derek Brassard still plays in the NHL?" But he's been okay in that role. I won't say he's been excellent, but he's been okay. Second line, we got Shane Pinto, who was unreal, scoring the OT winner in that preseason game where you and I were at, Pillsy, last September. And he's with Alex DeBrincat and Drake Batherson, who are both riding high with the way they've been playing of late. The third line, Mark Kaslick between Tyler Mott and Austin Watson. And the fourth line of Rourke Chartier in between Dylan Gambrell and Parker Kelly. On defense, it's Thomas Chabot with Nikita Zaitsev. It's Jake Sanderson with Travis Hamonic, good Manitoban, and Eric Brandstrom with Nick Holden. We expect Cam Talbot to start, although DJ says we'll find out at warm-up, but Cam Talbot was in the starter's end at the morning skate. He's 8-7-0 on the season with a .255 goals against and a .916 save percentage. Pillsy, who are you locked on to for tonight's game?
I'm going to be locked on to someone that's been on a heater lately, and that's Drake Batherson. In the last 8 games, he has an 8-game point streak and 12 points in that game, including 5 goals, 7 assists. But Ross, I mean, it's crazy that Batherson's racking up all these points, and he's still a -20 on the year in that point streak. 12 points in 8 games, he's a -3. Like, it's wild that he's still the defensive part of his game is not where we're used to seeing him. So I'm going to be locked on to Drake Batherson here because the line that's doing most of the damage here is that second line that we hoped would do damage eventually, and it's happening. DeBrincat and Batherson have been absolutely hot lately. Pinto hasn't really caught on to all the points and the point streak that come along with those two, but even in the Minnesota game where they only Batherson was able to get an assist in that, those two were connecting and they were creating chances together. So that second line, I think, if I had to pull a Ross Levitan and group a locked on line, I would be locked on to that second line.
All right. Sorry if you heard any mistakes there in the audio. My power just shut off and went back on really quickly. So like my printer's resetting. Anyways, hectic times here in the Levitan household down in southeastern Winnipeg. But no, to get back to it, you have Drake Batherson. Yeah, with plus minus, like it's such a fickle stat. We know that. But when nobody else on the team except one guy is dash 10,
That's the thing. Yeah.
double it. It's like, well, what's going on?
And he's almost a point per game guy with a dash 20. Like, sheesh.
Doing work on the power play, though. The whole Sens power play, talking about grouping guys together, the Sens power play has been the best in the National Hockey League for the last 3 weeks. So hopefully they can continue that. And they're going up against a power play that used to be lethal on both units, but just like Ottawa, with all the injuries they're having, it seems like just one unit. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams roll their first unit out there for the first minute and 59 seconds and then give the last one that penny of a second afterwards. My locked on player, you know what? I was going to go with Brady Tkachuk, but I feel like I pretty much covered it with my Levy locks for the bets tonight. So I'm going to go with Shane Pinto because we know down the middle is the weakest area for Ottawa. And while Winnipeg does have a lot of injuries as well, not down the middle. That's their biggest strength with Mark Scheifele, with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Adam Lowry. That is as good a 1-2-3 as you'll see in the National Hockey League. They don't have the 1-2 like Crosby and Malkin, but when you add Lowry and how solid he's been in that 3 spot, you would be confident going up with anyone else in the league, especially 1-2-3 of Derek Brassard, Shane Pinto, and Mark Kaslick. So out of those 3 guys, you're going to need the best of them to be at their best for you to have any success tonight. So I'm going to go with Shane Pinto as my locked on player. We'll see. Maybe he's got some of his old boys from UND going to make the 2-hour drive up and see if they can see that. We know his boys had a great time. His hometown friends had a great time in New Jersey, flipping off the crowd and having a time there. So we'll see if some of his boys, and same with Jake Sanderson. It's his first game in Winnipeg as well. So we'll see if they have some buddies coming up from Nodak.
Yep, that'd be awesome. Jake Sanderson hasn't really been in the spotlight lately. I don't know about you, Ross. Not to say that he's been bad, but we haven't really seen him pop off in the last 5 games, I'll say. So I'm going to be keeping a one eye on him just to see how things are going there.
Yes, myself as well. And a reason for it. And look at this, Pilsy. He's played 31 games this year, right?
Yep.
He hasn't played that many games in the last 2 years, like not since COVID.
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
22 games plus 7 at the World Junior. So 29 games in 2020. And then last year, 23 games in college, 1 game at the Olympics. That's it.
Yeah.
But now he's already well past that. It's going to be a bit of a grind when you're playing at a level you've never played at. I think he'll be perfectly fine, but the learning experience is going to be crucial for the majority of his career, what he's learning this season. But let's see a big night for Sanderson and St. Malo's finest in Travis Hammond. He played his first game as a Senator in Winnipeg last year. That was his first time suiting up. He had his family at the game, and I had almost brought a tear to my eye because all I had seen the discourse the last 3 days was how bad he is and how they shouldn't have even given up a 3rd-round pick for him. And then you kind of see the family aspect of it right at the glass in warmups. There's that photo that I took of him where it looks like he's staring into my soul, but it's because his wife and kids were standing right next to me. So I'm hopeful that Travis Hamonic has himself a nice sturdy game tonight, playing well in the defensive end and allowing Sanderson to roll with the puck. So yeah, if we're going forwards, Pinto and Batherson, 2 line mates. And then on the back end, let's keep our eye on the Sanderson and Hammond pair as well.
Yeah, agreed. So second line and second D pair here. Let's see what they got.
And that's what you need is depth. And that's what the Winnipeg Jets don't have a whole lot of right now with their injured list. Here, I'll run through their injured list. If you're watching on YouTube, you can already see the lineup and know they don't have 4 players on their 4th line. That's a hyphenated name there at right wing with Janssen Fialbi. However, their injury list is as follows. Nikolai Ehlers has only played 2 games this year. He's been out with a sports hernia surgery. He just started skating, but will not play just yet. Blake Wheeler just had groin surgery. Hell, he finished a game after suffering a torn groin. That doesn't sound comfy. So he's out. Mason Appleton, kind of like a Mathieu Joseph. It's not like the end of the world. Same with Saku Maenalainen. Nice 4th line player. On defense, Nate Schmidt. That's like their Artem Zub, kind of not same style, but in terms of minutes, in terms of reliability. Logan Stanley, kind of like a JBD in terms of value. But this is like the big one is obviously Connor Hellebuyck. So you can kind of match, right? Like 2 top 6 guys, Wheeler and Ehlers, Stützle and Norris, then Appleton and Joseph, Schmidt and Zub. So really it's Maenalainen and Hellebuyck are the 2 guys who kind of add to Winnipeg being a little more beat up than the Ottawa Senators. Do you want to roll through their lines and we'll get into the lookout player?
All right, so top line is Perfetti, Scheifele, and Kuhlman. Then you got Connor, Dubois, and Gagne. Sam Gagne still making it happen. You love to see that. Then you've got Barron with Lowry and Harkins. And the fourth line of Gustafsson, Stenlund, and Janssen Fjallby. On defense, Morrissey and DeMello. That's one hell of a D pair right there. Then Dillon and Pionk. And the final pair, Sandberg with Heinola. And in goal, yeah, this is the asterisk injury right here. No Connor Hellebuyck, as we believe David Riddick will get the start and Holm will be backing him up.
Yes, the Winnipeg Jets, as I mentioned at the start, 20-10-1 on the season. They've got 6 wins in their last 10 games. And offensively, they're led from the back end with your lookout player, Pills.
My lookout player has to be Josh Morrissey. I mean, this guy has really turned things up lately. And the stats of him in a recent stretch is crazy, Ross. I talked about Batherson having 12 points in 8 games. Morrissey has 11 points in a 9-game point streak. Only 5 games this season, Ross, he's been without a point. And he's a defenseman. Like, that is absolutely insane. And he leads this team with 36 points in 31 games. Wow.
You know what they're calling him around here?
What?
Josh Norrissey.
Oh, I like that. That's nice. Although Josh Norris, that's weird.
Yeah, right. You're right. But hey, if you put that out of your mind, I don't know if everyone here knows Josh Norris very well, but yeah, I like that nickname for him, and he is just playing out of his mind. Like, we had the conversation, and I think some Sens fans are gonna yell at us and kick and scream, but like, if you're picking Team Canada right now, you're taking Josh Morrissey before you take Thomas Chabot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Thomas Chabot is slowly kind of sliding out of that spot where I would consider him a strong candidate.
Still right there, but
I think he's in the mix. But am I confident for an Olympic team or a World Cup team that he would make it? It's a lot closer now.
Pillsy, get this. Josh Morrissey has 36 points this season. His career high was set last season with 37 in 79
Oh my God. Yeah, holy, that's crazy.
So he only has 48 games to match his point total from last year. Do you think he'll be able to do it?
I think he might be. So obviously he likes playing under Rick Bowness here. Wow.
He certainly does. And that was a conversation from this summer where he said, if you're not my number one guy, we're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
That's what Rick Bowness told him. And he's like, hey, look at what Heiskanen did for me in Dallas. I need you to be that guy. And there's a lot of similarities between how those two play the game. Like, very smooth, like, and kind of Chabot too, like very smooth, but Morrissey he battles so hard in front of the net. He's like 6'1". He's not a big guy, but he battles. So it'll be really interesting to watch. And then everyone knows hockey porn enthusiast Dylan DeMello, the way that Paul Maurice called him, right? Isn't that what he said?
I don't know. I don't know that quote.
I need to get Paul Maurice. And it was like the classic what people say when Senators get traded. I'm like, I don't know how this guy was available.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Okay. Maurice describes DeMello's Jets debut as coach's porn. So that's what it is.
Nice. I mean, fair. Like, Ross, we talked off air. Like, Dylan DeMello is my top trade target for the Sens. Like, he is the guy that they need to bring into this group here. Not a Seth Jones. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that was just like such a quick in and out comment there, right? Like, for Elliot Friedman, 32 thoughts. He's like, yeah, they've been calling everyone, just like Chicago and Seth Jones, the guy who has 7 years at 9.5 left on his contract. What? What? So yeah, it's not going anywhere. Seth Jones will not be coming to Ottawa as well. Okay, my lookout player. I could go a few different ways, but I already touched on the center depth. I was thinking about Adam Lowry. I'm not going to go that direction, but he's been a beast out there for the Jets this year. I'm going to go with Kyle Connor, who's also Pillsy riding a 9-game point streak, just like Josh Morrissey. He's got 5 goals and 14 points over that point streak. Get this, Pillsy. In the Jets' last home game, where Kyle Connor scored the game winner in overtime in a 2-1 win, also had an assist on Dylan DeMello's goal. It was his first goal in 94 games.
Oh, yeah, true.
For Dylan DeMello. Guess how many shots on goal Kyle Connor had in that game?
7.
11.
Oh, sheesh.
11 shots on goal for Kyle Connor. He's a capital letter Alex DeBrincat, I'll say. And Alex DeBrincat's a great player. Kyle Connor is ridiculously talented, but same like that water bug left winger. I know DeBrincat shoots right, but loves playing the left side, and they just score goals. 47 of them last year. 93 points in 79 games, especially on the power play. You cannot allow Kyle Connor time and space. But of note, 10 of Kyle Connor's 13 goals this year are at even strength. So he's doing just as much work at even strength as he is on the power play. But I'm going to be looking for the reigning Lady Byng Trophy winner. I mean, when you have a prestigious honor like that, you have to be your lookout player. Although we're going to have a new Lady Byng Trophy winner this year to get way off track, Pillsy. You see Cale Makar say no thanks on a power play last night?
But see, I think a lot of people are being like, what a weird move. But I think it's smarter than you think because Cale Makar doesn't want to get a reputation of embellishment. Like, that's him being like, look, like, that was me just tripping over. That's not me trying to sell a call because I felt his stick hit my arm and I'm like, ooh, if I fall here, it's an automatic cooking penalty. So I think it's more on the fact that Cale Makar doesn't want a reputation as a diver rather than emphasized on him trying to be extra sportsmanlike. That's just my take on that. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a very fair take. All right, Pillsy, give me your key to victory in tonight's game.
My key to victory is the big difference here in my mind is the goaltending. I think Cam Talbot can outduel David Riddick here, so make it easy on him. Cam Talbot already does a really good job of rebound control, in my opinion, so make sure he can see those shots. Make sure the defense units, like I'm talking the right side guys, Zaitsev, Hammond, and Holden, clear the front of the net. Don't allow tip shots to get through. Don't allow easy cross-seam, cross-slot passes like they did up against the Minnesota Wild where Cam Talbot or Anton Forsberg had no chance on those. So my key to victory is make Cam Talbot's night easy. And I think legitimately when we compare these lineups with the injury troubles both teams have, I think the Sens have a good shot here, which I probably wouldn't have said if Connor Hellebuyck was in net. So make it easy on Cam Talbot, and you got a chance here.
For me, it's use your depth early on in this game. We know both teams are struggling with injuries. Both teams are also in their third game in 4 nights. Both teams played Saturday and Sunday. Winnipeg was way out west. They played at Vancouver, at Seattle, Saturday, Sunday, came back here. They probably got in at 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday, whereas Ottawa just bounced up from Minnesota. They were here in their beds at the beautiful West, and the chic thread count I heard is unbelievable at the Fairmont. We'll have to ask Mark Mathot when he comes on with us next what he thinks about the Fairmont. But all seriousness, they got in. They had the full day yesterday. So even though it's a 3rd and 4 games, I think Ottawa's better position. Although sleeping in your own bed, you can make an argument for that with the Jets players. But they obviously the 3rd and 4th line for Ottawa, like the 3rd line should be the 4th line type thing. They got 2 4th lines. Use them early on in this game. And then use your big dogs at the end. Like that third period, I expect it to be kind of double shifting the Giroux line, double shifting with the Pinto line, and get those two rolling because we talk always about how the Senators cannot win when they're trailing after 2 periods.
Yeah.
For Winnipeg, it's even more pronounced because when they're tied after 2 periods, they're also elite. When leading or tied after 2 periods this year, Pillsy, the Jets are 19-3-1. When they're trailing after 2 periods, they're 1-7, including 0-3 at home. So you cannot go into the 3rd period having this Jets team that can shut it down with a lot of good defensive forwards. And Rick Bowness' system always has good defensive metrics. You can't allow them the opportunity to turn that switch into neutral and coast through the end of the game because they will defend well. They will check well. You can't allow it. Score the first goal would be a bonus, but I think that have your depth players play strong in the first 40 minutes to have the extra gas for your top guys to really go in the 3rd.
All right. I like that. So since you're going to have boots on the ground here and everyone knows your boots on the ground record, 9-0.
Since starting the podcast regular season, yeah.
What is your score prediction for tonight's game?
Ooh, I almost want to say 5-2, just like it was last spring.
Okay.
Riddick is in net. I'll say 5-3 Ottawa.
Okay. I'm going 4-2 Ottawa, and they get an empty netter.
Okay. Brady, empty netter?
Yeah.
All right. A final note, just because this is so wild to me. Rick Bowness, as we just mentioned, the coach of the Winnipeg Jets, coached the Ottawa Senators 30 years ago. He was the Senators' first ever coach, and now here he is coaching the Winnipeg Jets at age 68. Super impressive for him. And credit to him for bouncing back, too. He got a bad case of COVID in training camp. His shot, like, he missed games. Like, it was not good. And at one point, like, he answered questions for it for about 2 days. And on the third day, he said, guys, this isn't about me. Yeah. I'm not 100%, but stop asking me. So everyone's like, okay, fine. And now he's just a battler. I love, like, we've had some coaches that don't give great quotes. He's one of those guys that will sit down and tell the media exactly what he thinks about players, systems, whatever. He's not saying like, oh, we'll let you know our goalie at warmups. Like, he doesn't care. Yeah, I love him as a coach. So I think it's kind of cool, the contrast of 30 years later. And now, hey, here's a bonus matchup. The first bonus versus bonus matchup with Ryan Bowness, Senators assistant GM, the son of Rick Bowness. So maybe some money on the board in the Bowness household.
I love that. Yeah, I got a lot of time for Rick Bowness. He seems like a good dude. And Ross, how about the stones on this guy coming into Winnipeg, and first thing he does, rips the C off Blake Wheeler. Wow. That talk about coming in with an impact and being like, we are going to make some changes around here.
It's working, like, not even just for the whole team, but like Blake Wheeler before being injured. So we don't really have to touch on it too much, not in the lineup tonight, but he's got, 26 points in 29 games, and he's a plus player. Last year, was he a plus player? No, he was minus 15. The year before that, he was minus 17 in only 50 games.
And how long was Wheeler the captain there? Like, has he been the captain the whole time?
Ooh, I want to say a long
like since
time.
They moved back? Probably.
Yeah. No, I think there was.
Who else would it have been?
Andrew
Ladd.
Andrew Ladd, exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm pulling it up right now. He was named captain in 2016.
Okay, so a decent amount of time.
Right when you and I met, Pilsy, at the College of Sports Media.
Yep, yeah. So to come in as a coach right away and take the C off like that, they asked Blake Wheeler about that, and I believe the question was, were you surprised when he did that? And he's like, yeah, I was surprised. Like, I've been the captain here for 6 years. He calls me into his office and he's like, yeah, you're not going to be the captain anymore. Wow, like that's an intense move, and it's paying off though.
It certainly is. The Jets are without a captain, but they do have plenty of leaders, especially up front. We'll be watching for Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and ultimately that depth down the middle with Mark Scheifele having a bounce-back season of his own. He's a guy who always seems to come to play in those big games, and this season he is he's got 27 and 31, so he slowed down a little, but 19 goals, which leads the team. Winnipeg has 3 goal scorers with more than 10 goals. They've got 19 from Scheifele, 15 from Dubois, and 13 from Connor, whereas the Ottawa Senators are actually exceeding that. The Ottawa Senators have 5 players with 10 or more goals this season. That's pretty impressive when you think about it.
And to break, it's right there at 9. So, yeah, like the Ottawa Senators essentially have like 5 guys that are basically at a point per game pace, like within 1 or 2 points. So, like we knew it would. The offense is clicking and the offense is working. Can they shut it down defensively? That's the question.
So even though the Senators have 2 players with 30 or more points, the Jets have 3 players with 35 or more points. So they're getting a lot of offense from those top guys as well. It'll be a great game tonight. I'm looking forward to it. For more, you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central. I'm sure that I will be tweeting a few things here or there. Will we get a beat the traffic chant tonight? You know I love those, but I'm going to be a little more conservative about them after what happened Wednesday with the 2 goals immediately after by the Montreal Canadiens. But that was a from the couch beat the traffic. When you're in person, you got to be sure. You got to be sure. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts is enjoy the game, buddy. It's only once a year the Ottawa Senators come to your town of Winnipeg, so have a blast.
They're not coming for the Stanley Cup Finals?
It's possible, like we said, until teams are mathematically eliminated. Although the Ottawa Senators are last place in their division, there's still a chance.
There is still a chance. Well, I'll tell you, there's a chance that we're gonna have a good time on the postcast tonight. So everyone, make sure you're tuned in. It's an 8:00 start Eastern time, and I'm gonna take Martian's advice and run. from the arena to my car, and we'll be back. Just to be clear, I am not driving tonight. I will be having a good time, and
Nice.
and we'll get home, and I'll jump right on the postcast either with you or Martian, or we'll start a little bit later. But just head to the YouTube page. We put up the banner, and we'll have an ETA of when we start from there. But for today, we say goodbye. Enjoy the day, everyone. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.